Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again, and today I wanted to talk a bit about wanding and wanders and whether or not they are feeling a bit stale. Because recently I took it upon myself to make a Power Siphon based character that is using Power Siphon purely as the clear of the character for a wander, and then also trying to avoid barrage for single target, and thus using something like Frenzy or Power Siphon, and trying to step away from the very extremely solid mode of Kinetic Blast and Barrage wanders, which we've been using for the past few years. And basically, long story short, yeah, no, that's not possible. So wanders are currently just Barrage and Kinetic Blast machines. Now, past few weeks or a few weeks ago, I did make a purely Barrage character with Barrage Volley Fire, and that is probably one of the only other sort of competitive options, but ultimately Kinetic Blast is way better for clear anyway. So we're stuck and kind of pigeonholed in this place where you have to use Kinetic Blast for your clear skill and Barrage for your single target. Now that is simply because they are both vastly better options than the alternatives for the clear and the single target. For this character, this Pathfinder Power Siphon Wander, I tried my best to make Power Siphon kind of a thing, and I think you really need to get either some solid chain or some solid pierce to make it work, and for the most part I tried chain quite a lot, but pierce had its own merits as well, and ultimately it was okay, but as soon as you slotted Kinetic Blast, even at level 1 compared to the level 18 that I had of Power Siphon, my clear speed went up by about 3 times. It's roughly 3 times as effective, I'm going to go ahead and say, to use Kinetic Blast over Power Siphon, because where Power Siphon takes 2, maybe 3, sometimes even 4 clicks or attacks to clear a pack, Kinetic Blast takes 1 click and then it'll clear 1 or 2 screens even, and it's just ridiculous. So it's something we've all been very aware of for quite a while, but the facts are just really kind of overwhelming in that we had Kinetic Blast about 3 years ago introduced into this game, and ever since it was, we had no other choice for wanding except for Kinetic Blast. And then once again, with all the stuff that just keeps getting added into the game, Barrage just gets just got better and better and completely outshone all other wanding and bowing single target skills. So you're very much pigeonholed into running Barrage because it's got something like twice as much output as a Frenzy, maybe even more in some cases, and thus you're just pigeonholed into a Barrage Kinetic Blast playstyle. Now for me personally, that has become a bit of a problem simply because every other type of build in the game has quite a vast amount of options that you can go with. Now, the types of builds I'm going to say is something like melee, spellcasters, bow, wanders, then we can list things like totems and mines and all of that sort of stuff, and there's quite a lot of different options. So if you take bows for example, the clear skill that you can use for bows is really up to you. You can run Ice Shot, Lightning Arrow, Tornado Shot, Split Arrow, though Split Arrow I would argue is probably one of the weaker of the lot. You can run quite a lot of different ones because no single one is that far ahead of the rest that you can't run the others. Arguably Lightning Arrow could probably be the best, but it's not, far and away better. Likewise with melee, especially with the introduction of Ancestral Call, you can kind of pick whatever the hell you want, and that's in a really good place right now, where you can run just about anything and be fairly competitive, whereas Reeve, for example, is probably the top tier of the melee clear skills. It's not that far ahead of all the other Ancestral Call bullshit, or Sunder and all of that stuff, that you can't possibly run the other things. And then for single target, of course, you have things like Blade Flurry and Magma Orb that are absolutely king, but they're not that far and away better than the rest that you can't afford to run the other stuff. Whereas wanding, I feel, simply has just become way too stale in the past few years because Kinetic Blast 3 years ago just has taken over wanding and nothing's come since then, and I sincerely hope there will be more wanding stuff and wanding friendly skills, buffs, whatever in the future in the next patch, which may be coming in a month, who knows, I don't really know what they're working on. But on top of that, we're missing an entire wanding movement skill because Blink Arrow is introduced, and that was purely for bow characters, but hopefully wanding gets a bit of love in the future. Now I do want to go over just a little bit of how I've been trying to tackle this character. I'm not going to go too far with it because I was trying to just be pure Power Siphon, and I'm going to have to bench it because it's just not fun enough to really keep going. So let me start out by saying in before they nerf Kinetic Blast and Barrage, and we're on a level playing field with Frenzy and Power Siphon, in that they're all shit. But hopefully that doesn't happen. We get a few new skills, maybe some buffs, maybe some alterations. Who the fuck knows? In any case, the way I was trying to build this character was, as always, throwing a bunch of solid gear at it. But the idea is Power Siphon itself is basically just a, basic attack. The benefits of it are it has a culling strike, so 10% damage, and a power charge on that cull. And besides that, it is just plain a basic attack, and it looks really cool, and it has a fairly high mana cost. Now compare it to Kinetic Blast, which is pretty similar in all aspects, except it creates 4 explosions, and those explosions do 25% less damage in the area. But point for point, that is vastly better than the current Power Siphon. But the idea to build around something like a Power Siphon is you really need some utility to make it clear. So instead of just attacking with it like a Pierce and a KB would with GMP, for example, you really want to do something like a Prolif Ignite, which doesn't exist anymore, or specifically some chain action. So you may think, popularly something like Deadeye with an additional chain would be pretty good for it. And in a lot of cases that would be good enough. But for Power Siphon, which is just a straight up single default attack, an additional chain I don't think is good enough. So you really, I feel, should be using an actual chain support gem, because that gives you 2 additional chains and of course cuts your damage, but as well as that you still get all of the benefit of all the other shit from another ascendancy, and in this case that's Pathfinder. So I do have a whole bunch of shit here, a lot of attack speed, a lot of movement speed, and a bunch of extra damage from Veteran Bowyer, which gives you, Ellie Pen and Fizz damage as extra elements. Alternatively, something like a Raider's fine, a Inquisitor. There are a lot of different options, but, long story short, Power Siphon sucks, and even this can't really make it work. What I was trying to do was make a 5 or 6 link Power Siphon, currently in my helm slot with Hypothermia, running Power Siphon, Elemental Damage to Attacks, Chain, GMP, and of course Hypothermia on the helm. So it did do some decent damage, but ultimately it just does not have the clear anywhere close to what a Kinetic Blast does. So as I mentioned throughout the vid, just subbing in a level 1 Kinetic Blast over a level 19, 18 Power Siphon was clearing way better and clearing through packs and off screen without even trying, while Power Siphon you definitely had to attack a few times here or there to clear an actual pack just by itself. So it was way worse, and I got up to about level 84 before swapping into Kinetic Blast and just having some fun with the actual Wander at this point, and it's just not worth it, is all I can really say at this point. I tried, it was very pretty, it's doable, but it just feels kind of bad knowing that you're really at 1/3 of your potential when you could be using a much more fun and exciting skill like Kinetic Blast, and it turns into just being kind of a regular Wander, which is just a Pathfinder, has all the good shit, goes through Ranger tree, goes up here to the Wanding stuff and gets some Alchemist nodes and all that. So it's not built exactly like my previous Scion ones, which I think are a superior ascendancy currently, especially with Barrage in as a factor. But I just tried to make use of a few little Wanding jewels here or there for some flat damage, and in this case I'm stacking Fire and Lightning, so I don't have to triple balance my Wise Oak, and instead only double balance, so 126 Fire, 126 Lightning. So that's penetration to both of those, and I'm mostly scaled off of a physical wand, and then Fire and Lightning damage on top of that, as you can see with the rest of my gear. So currently the spread there is pretty decent physical, good lightning, good fire, and it clears really well. It's pretty damn fun, but it's just another Kinetic Blast character. It's not something I really wanted to play at the moment. I very specifically wanted to try Power Siphon or go into a Poet's Pen build, which will be probably in the next few weeks regardless. So I won't really be taking this character on too far at this point, just messing about in maps, having a bit of fun. I did try and get Impulses into the Power Siphon shenanigans as well, so Impulses and Herald of Ice, so that we could actually get a bit more explosions and clear speed happening, and even comboed with that, it still didn't really affect it too much to the degree that it's going to be anywhere close to a Kinetic Blast. So I won't go over this character in any great detail. I'll just link the path of building for you guys if you want to try and have a sort of template for a wander, but by no means is this really something you should be following. There are much more complete wanders out there, and even ones I've done in the past. This is just a template if you want to follow it, because it does work for Kinetic Blast, and it can work for Barrage if you end up socketing a Barrage in somewhere. It's still fine. It's a very cookie cutter wander at that point, but I've tried to make Power Siphon work. It kind of does. It's just not really worth it, and I do think ultimately wanders are in a bit of a precarious, stale position right now. We do have a big expansion for Ascendancies, I think, and some skill reworks coming in a few weeks, and hopefully that helps a lot of the game and largely wanders as well. So that's my 2 cents on the issue. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.